scaling of social science. I'm Harsiddhi Shah, Senior Associate Programs at AIC GUSEC. AIC GUSEC is an incubator by Atal Innovation Mission at the Gujarat University. Today's webinar series is a series under the Prabhav, the Social Entrepreneurship Summit 2021. Prabhav is aligned with the motive of developing a strong social ecosystem in the state for social impact startups, grassroots level innovations. Before we begin, I would like to inform all the attendees that all the attendees of this webinar will be getting a certificate of participation on filling the feedback form. We'll be sharing the form at the end of the session, so you all should make sure to fill it. Let's get back to the topic. Let's talk about the topic at hand today. Creating social impact is the result of a deliberate set of activities with a goal to achieve success. It's time to create a dialogue and encourage that growth with deliberate discussion. AIC GUSEC and ECHI, in association with UNICEF, bring to you an opportunity to get the ball rolling. I would like to request Jatin Chaudhary, salesman at ECHI Network, to begin the webinar. Over to you, Jatin. Thank you. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you so much, Harsiddhi, and thank you so much, everyone, again. If this was an offline event, I would have asked everybody to clap louder, but with online, we could make do with whatever we could do. You can use the emojis actually to engage or use the chat button. Hi again, I'm Jatin. I'm the co-founder of ECHI. We primarily host engaging startup growth meetups in 15 countries. We started from Ahmedabad 12 years back, but last 3 years were very incredible for us that we were able to start ECHI network across 15 countries. Today, actually, we have an in-person meetup happening in Estonia. Well, in India, we are doing this online meetup, but hopefully when things get better, we will get started with our in-person meetups everywhere also. With this, today's session is about scaling social enterprises, scaling social startups. And we have 5 very inspiring founders who have joined us. So the format will be, we'll have each of the speakers briefly introduce about them, give about their background and why they started this enterprise. So that will give you context about a lot of discussion that will happen. Meanwhile, I'll continue asking them questions. But those of you who are in the audience, if you want to ask any questions, use chat buttons. We have this reward. We will select one individual who will get this ice cream from Zomato, which I will send if you ask good questions. But with this, we'll just get started. And once again, thank you so much, everyone, again. Sujata, if you can tell us a little more about your background, about how did you get started, Suta, so people get the background story, and then we'll get deep down on specific topics. Yes, Sujata.
Sure. Hi, everyone. So I co-founded a brand called Suta in 2016. So the brand is 5 years old. And we started with an intention, only one intention in mind, that we would impact the grassroots level. So basically, we work with weavers and craftsmen across India. And so we started with 2 weavers in 2016, and now it's a family of almost 15,000 plus weavers and craftsmen across India. So we work in different formats in different villages, because in India we know it's such an unorganized sector. So making one kind of model is very difficult. So we are figuring out different kind of models to get implemented in different parts of India. So we'll talk about scale up probably when we all start talking about it, but I'm just very happy to know that you guys are doing so wonderful. So look forward to hearing about your journey as well. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sujata. Nidhi, if you can briefly tell us your background and about As4Us Families.
Hi, good evening, everyone. And thanks, Harsiddhi, as well as Jatin and everyone here to take time and to be present here. And definitely a lot of engaging comments from Jatin in terms of ice creams and other things. Quite exciting. And congratulations for all the 15 countries. That's really incredible during lockdown. I will briefly tell you about As4Us. As4Us stands for Science for Society. What we mean by Science for Society is that everything that interventions that we do is to cater to the bottom of the pyramid people, as well as using scientific innovation in service of people. We started this back when we were in college. We studied chemical engineering and saw the 2 most important problems that actually is present in this nation. One is of the food wastage that happens in the entire supply chain from your farm gate to your marketplace. We call it post-harvest losses. So whatever farmers produce that gets wasted due to various reasons, lack of infrastructure, distant markets, not having proper value addition infrastructure at the farm gate. So seeing this sort of wasted at the farm gate, we realized that this is a big problem to solve. Around food worth $14 billion gets wasted every year. At the same time, if you see, we have $126 million smallholder farmers, and specifically women. Farmers who are not even qualified as farmers today because they don't have any land holding. Due to patriarchy, the land goes either to the husband or to the brother, and they work as farm laborers in other lands, or have to travel across from their village in search of alternate income options. And seeing these two very big problems, that we saw that most of the smallholder farmers earn less than $2 per day, and women don't even have any other ways to have livelihood options. That's combining these two problems, we started Science for Society. We work in the agriculture domain. What we do primarily is set up farm factories for farmers to process their produce, reducing wastage, and also earn an assured additional income. And I'm looking forward to interactions with everyone else and hearing from other panelists. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nidhi. Uttam, if you can give us your background and about Ecom.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Jatin. Thank you for having me here. And good afternoon to everybody. So by training, I'm a mechanical engineer and a product designer, but currently working with P&Poo. I started this venture called Ecom Eco in 2013. So it's been about 8 years now. Ecom actually works in the domain of sustainable sanitation and waste management. And some of the products or solutions that we have include waterless urinals, natural and enzymatic cleaners, biological solutions that can degrade the sewage in few hours and convert into usable water. The idea is that all of these solutions are developed to offer an end-to-end solution in the space of sanitation or sustainability. And the idea is to create a closed loop system wherein whatever waste, I personally don't like to call it as waste. Everything is a resource for us. Whatever we generate can be processed at source and converted into something usable, something useful. So the idea is how we can create a better world for the future generations. So that's what we are working for, and I look forward to hearing you all. And yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Uttam. Kishore, if you can tell us a little more about you, about Ergos.
Yeah. Hi. Thanks, Jatin. Thanks for inviting me in this forum, and definitely we'll have a wonderful discussion, I believe, and lots of learnings. So yeah. So I set up this company called Ergos, the grain bank at Farmgate in 2012, almost 10 years back, when the agri-tech was at a very nascent stage to talk about. But yes, luckily we got good support from the that investors and all the ecosystem stakeholders, and we scaled, and now we are across the geography. So we solve a problem of that Farmgate based digitizing the grain of the farmers, because as Nidhi said, that marginal farmers have a very small holdings, and we need to enable them. And for that, we need to have operational capability, right intent to solve the problem at Farmgate. And we built a capacity at Farmgate in terms of setting up 500 to 2,000 metric ton capacity at warehouse at Farmgate, and then using technology to connect them to the lenders or to the directly to the buyers and all that. And that's how we help the farmer to realize 30 to 40% higher income on their sales produce of the agriculture produce. And now we are scaling across pan India. This is the brief journey about our venture.
Thank you so much, Kishore. Binayak, if you can tell us a little more about your background and about ThinkZone.
Yeah. Hi everyone. So my name is Binayak. I'm the founder of social enterprise ThinkZone. So at ThinkZone, we work towards improving the learning outcomes of children in low resource settings. We do this by enabling community educators and parents to implement activity-based learning content. I'm audible to everyone, right?
Yes, yes. Yes, Binayak.
Yeah, okay. So
So Binayak, when you mentioned that, whether you are audible or not, we heard that, but we didn't heard the thing that you said after that. Hello? Probably we lost Binayak there. He will join, hopefully.
yes.
Jatin, you are audible. Binayak is
so
also, I can see Binayak here. We can't.
but we couldn't hear his voice.
Yeah,
So probably we'll get him back once he has better connection.
Okay.
So everyone, we'll have three kinds of audiences right now. So we have some students who are interested in exploring entrepreneurship. We have some early stage social and impact entrepreneurs, and we have some other startup founders and who are interested in this as a space. So I'll have some specific questions for each of you and some common later on. So Sujata, so one of the things that, when everyone starts up, this is a classic problem that people would want to solve, right? Like empowering artisans and creating a good brand or a business, but very few businesses are able to continuously do that. And people get 1 year success, 2 year success, and then they have to pivot to something else. So in your experience, when you were starting Suta, what are the things that really worked for you in the initial years, and what are those things that is helping you scale now, Sujata?
So yeah, it's a very valid question and a very valid topic that, people, when the moment scale comes in, then, the entire business model sometimes just probably they don't support each other. Scaling also requires a lot of things to be right to be able to scale. So for example, in Suta, I think what worked for us was the thing that our vision, we always kept telling to our customers. So for us, so it depends on everybody else's startup here. So who is the final audience? So who is the final customer who's going to pay for it? So basically we have to look at social entrepreneurship where, it is sustainable, where some money is coming in and, the finances are strong. And hence it's very important that the final consumer or the customer here need to be also aligned with the vision. So what we did is whatever we were working on, the products and how it was happening, the entire story about it, we were telling it to our customers via social media, even on our website, writing exactly about, about how it's made, how the product is made. Gave a lot of boost initially because, when you start, that's what is important. I believe that you have to establish that why you're doing it, and even the stakeholders, everybody around you need to also be equally invested in the vision that you have. So I think that's one key. And about scale up, I think scale, a lot of times we don't even know when we are ready to scale, especially for a product-based company like Suta. What happens in the supply chain, the operations is the critical factor here, because as long as the backend is not strong, you would never be able to know that, you probably invest in advertisement or you've done something and then orders start coming in, but your supply chain is weak. So I think that's where a lot of businesses suffer a lot, because they haven't thought through probably before going ahead and starting advertising. So I think that's one more area which need to be focused on.
Yep, awesome. Thank you so much, Sujata. Nidhi, so the question for you is in the similar zone that, when you were starting up, as far as how do you go about building the team, what was that eureka moment for you that, this is the problem? Because you and Kishore also mentioned that, agri-tech, probably now that is a lot of talk about it. But when you were starting up, what really motivated you is that, you could build a product or a solution and sustain this business? Nidhi.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Jatin. One major thing that actually motivates us every day is the problem that we are solving and how this solution is an equitable solution. So we do not, we work with the farmers where they are and do not expect them to, have lot of resources and then decide. These are like really farmers who don't have access to credit, neither do they have any trainings. They lack education. So the solution is targeted in this way where we are able to, it's a sustainable solution. We work on completely solar powered processing systems. So setting up a decentralized system, which is better for the society in terms of lesser carbon emissions. It's also something which is giving an assured additional income to the farmers, to these women, directly in their hands. So they have better decision making in their household. Usually men migrate to cities in search of jobs or alternate income options, and women are left behind to run the household. So with this, now they also have a cash flow coming in, so they have better decision making of investing, whether in healthcare or in education of their families. And third, and the most important, is also the wastage, how this gets reduced. But at the same time, what was the Eureka moment for us is that we are a two-sided marketplace. We are not only solving for farmers and our micro entrepreneurs, but also solving for our customers, to whom the most important part is that either the quality, there needs to be reliability of supply, there needs to be quality assurance that you need to give them, and also affordability of produce. So we supply to large players like Marico, Indian Railways, Sodexo, for whom this quality is so critical as a packaged food company. So it's very important that the supply chain for them, who's getting an equitable or a traceable, is secondary, but their actual, because these are go as food ingredients, their actually product quality needs to be met. So for us, the most, we started our journey by selling equipment to farmers, but then pivoted on selling food from those equipment. So that was the Eureka moment for us. First is that there can be a recurring income that can be generated for farmers as well as the organization. And second is that we only are not solving for one part, which is the impact part of our supply chain, but also for our customers, and need to match that completely, that color, aroma, nutrition, everything is retained. So that's something that's critical. And how we went about building our team is to also find people who are mission aligned, as Sujata mentioned. That's initially for 0 to 1 part of business, that's very important until you find the right product market fit. So you require more generalists, and then after the second layer, where you have found that you also need some experts who can help you go a bit more deeper and scale it. So we usually work in 3 parameters: experimentation, productization, and scale up. So have different team members for each category who can help you deliver impact and also give value to the customer.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Nidhi. Kishore, building a social enterprise is difficult. Raising venture capital is difficult. You are building a social enterprise and you raise venture capital also. So in your experience, was it easy, or what was difficult, or how do you communicate to the investors, probably who are looking for maximizing profits, that social enterprise can be that organization which can do that? Kishore.
Yeah. So yeah, for me, I think the biggest learning is that, when we started, and when you are starting something at ground zero, you are actually surrounded with the hundreds of problems, and it's so noisy that it's very difficult to concentrate on one problem at a time. And it's very difficult also to justify your concentration at one point, because what happens, you try to diversify your risk. And in order to diversify, to minimize the risk, you are optimizing the risk, or you are even maximizing the risk. So what we learned initial days, that there was hundreds of problem of the farmer. When you go and meet him, they will say, you help me on this. So there is a list of 100 problems, but we cannot do everything at one time. So we focused on one thing, that is that, okay, I will help you to sell your grain at a better price. But for that, we need to have a physical infrastructure which can ensure the quality and preservation for some time, so that your negotiation power can go up and the lenders can actually lend you even a 10,000, 20,000 rupee, which is not existing in India. And farmer, if you see, the farmer is not able to borrow 10,000, 20,000 on their personal capacity except KCC. So they all are coming through the FPOs and all these route, which is again have a different story. So what we learn actually that unless we mature in one idea, one execution, build some profitability, build some traction, we never switched over to the another things. And that's how, build some scale and validated the model. Like, when an investor says that, okay, impact is good, because that gives us a very good holding, very good brand visibility and the customer loyalty, because that's how the impact actually is becoming the mainstream now. Because without impact, you cannot scale at a larger level, because the customer holding is not there. The value is not visible, okay, on the table. And then only you will be able to justify your existence within your company or outside with your customer and all that. So my learning was that if I'm, going and raising money, we commit something that, okay, I will scale this business from point A to point B. I will build these kind of traction in terms of the revenue, the customer acquisition, your geography expansion, all that. But if that is only happening just to raise money, then definitely you are distracted. But if it is happening, primer focus on building real business at ground zero, like let's say I'm servicing only 10,000 farmer. And if just for the sake of going and saying, hey, look, I'm impacting 1 million farmer because investor wants to hear that, I'm sorry, I'm not into that game. There is the distraction, that don't listen the other people outside the business. What we have done for last 10 years, we are not servicing millions farmers. We are not aspiring so soon. We are building process. We are building tech platform, which definitely will evolve one day to service a couple of million farmers. But honestly speaking, it took for me to service, 20,000 farmers 10 years. 10 saal lag gaye 20,000 kisanon tak pahunchne mein. But no one has a patience, because we build that kind of vocabulary unnecessarily. Investor doesn't say that. They also say that, boss, you build real business, right? And that's real business is something that once you have a repeat customer, if the farmer is really seeing the value in your services, they will come again and again. So do we have 80-90% repeat customer, repeat farmer? That also bring down your customer acquisition cost. That also build, that ability to scale faster, because you're getting more and more stronger in your process, the control system, and you can tighten each and every screw and nut and bolts in your business so that we can quickly scale. So it takes time, but till then, we need to have first patience as an entrepreneur. Definitely we can negotiate with the investors as well, that hold on, I need more time, okay? And they are definitely ready to give you the time, but for that, we need to be a first confident. We need to be a first bullish in our idea and the execution capability. And that's where I believe that when I raise funds, a couple of rounds, and now again, we'll be going market and raising funds. So we see that validation, commitment, and focus on one thing, two things at a time, and do not distract much, and build scale, and then try to, that expand across the geography. That was the mantras. And I believe that was the learning.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Friends, in case if you have any questions, you can ask in the chat, or those of you are watching on Facebook or YouTube, you can ask in the comments over there also. Uttam, now there is a lot of talk about, being environmentally conscious or using sustainable products. And you also have a product design background also. So what was that unique insight that you had that will go about building this product, and how are you able to commercialize successfully there?
Sorry, I lost your voice in between. Can you come again? Yes,
so my question about on two fronts. What was that unique insight that you had that you'll go for this kind of products? And another thing, how are you building a business out of it, which is much more than a building prototypes?
So yeah, I mean, we started this. Of course, we started this as a commercial venture in 2013, but the whole project actually started as a college project. When I was actually pursuing my master's, and the whole idea of working on sanitation, working on specifically urine as a nutrient. So if you look at urine and feces, there are a lot of NPK, there are a lot of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, which we normally import, right? And given the population of India, if you look at the kind of volume that we can generate, it's huge. I mean, there were a couple of reports that I, sort of came across back then. I think some of them were from UNICEF or UNESCO, I don't remember that. But that said that, the kind of population India has, if you can collect the urine and feces, and if you can recycle, you can generate $1.8 billion of revenue a year. So that's a great motivation, right? So normally the thing that we call as a waste, you can generate so much of resource. So it started as a college project, and the whole idea was to look at urine as a resource and try and see if you can actually recycle and take it back to the farm. So the idea was to create a closed loop sanitation system. We consume and then we discharge, but it does not get recycled. It gets into the open channel, open system. So it took us around 2-3 years to work on the products, work on the idea. So we worked on waterless urinals, we worked on low flushing toilets, we worked on nutrient recovery systems, but it remained as a college project. And we graduated from the college, we joined our respective corporate worlds, and I joined a startup also, worked in these areas for a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, and then I realized that we did so much of work in the college, but it never came out. It remained on paper. We filed the patent, everything happened, but for the people for whom actually we designed all of that, it didn't happen. So that's when actually I started discussing all of these ideas with one of my ex-professor at IIT Delhi, and that's when we realized this whole area of sanitation or waste management has immense potential, because there are very few people who are actually focusing on this. If you look at these sanitary ware market, this is completely focusing on the receptacles or on the ceramic ware, right? On the faucets and wash basins and things like that. But nobody's actually focusing on the processing system. And that's when we actually thought of starting this. But another thing that actually worked out for us was 2014, when this Swachh Bharat mission was launched on a larger scale. And that actually opened up a lot of possibilities in terms of, not in terms of actual business, but in terms of creating awareness. So sanitation in itself is like a taboo. So nobody wants to talk about sanitation and share their experiences. So after this Swachh Bharat mission that happened in 2014, so people have started talking about, sanitation and waste management and building toilets and, looking at the toilet waste and, collecting it or processing it. So that actually helped us a lot. And I think, yeah, so nowadays, in fact, a lot of people are saying that, COVID was kind of, it affected us so badly. In fact, we feel that every problem is an opportunity. So even during these COVID times, the good thing that happened to us is people now have started talking about building immunities. People have started talking about non-chemical, non-toxic products. So that actually a good thing for us also, because people are getting more and more aware about these areas.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you so much, Uttam. Binayak, can you hear us? I have a question for you in case if you're able to speak up.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So Binayak, the question for you is, when people talk about nation building, education gets that priority. That is the thing that you should solve for. But education, social enterprises, they get a lot of appreciation, but it is very difficult to build it as a business if you are catering to bottom of the pyramid market. So in your case, how are you pulling that off?
Yes. So, Jatin, like in this case, it has a lot to do with how we think about building a business model in terms of a social enterprise. Now, what happens is that, like, at the end of the day, if you have education, any edtech product in market, we are of the assumption that a business model would work if the end users are paying. Like, you have paying customers. Now, when we started at KingZone, we also were thinking exactly the same lines, that it would be like economies of scale model, wherein like you will start reaching out to children, even if you will be charging them fees. So when we sort of started to scale, and when we realized that, hey, this might be maybe say working for big tech companies, but then maybe for social enterprises to build a model at scale wherein you have paying customers is somewhere we have to draw the line. Now, when you asked about how can we build social enterprises, and that too in an education space wherein parents might not have the access or opportunity to pay for the service. So in that case, like I always look at not as a typical say business scenario, wherein at the end of the day, any organization's revenue should be more than its expenses, right? That is how a business is built. Now, I should not be caring about from where my revenues are coming from, but if someone like that is what it's like the craze, like wherein you say that, oh, your end users needs to pay, oh, you need to have a B2C model, B2B2C model, XYZ. So you have different jargons there wherein you say that, hey, a social enterprise should be needing to scale, and if they want to scale, they need to charge to their like paying customers. It can be, it can be successful, like as Uttam mentioned, Kishore mentioned that, okay, if you are working in agriculture space, you can have, paying customers. But in education, if you really want to do that, yes, you can charge your customers, but very well, if you don't want to charge your end users, or in case parents or children, you can still build a successful model by trying out alternate revenue channels. So it could be, government, it could be corporates, it could be any sort of, modes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Binay. Ashok has raised the hand, but Ashok, if you can, ask that question in the chat, so we can take up more questions. So Amol has asked, is it good to scale up before product is good market fit? So Kishore, and what are your thoughts on that? And when did you realize that, you got the product market fit? Kishore.
Yeah. So I think what we have learned that scaling cannot be or may not be the constraint to grow, I believe, unless, product is mature and the service is, that mature. So I believe that before your product, your process is in a right shape or in order, we should not, I think, or we should delay scaling unless we are very strong, very confident in our product, because we have learned that. What I tell you, my experience, like even, in agri-tech space, each district in the country, which is average agriculture producing district, have a potential to do a business of 400 to 500 crore rupees. Now, even scaling from one district to another district is a big challenge. Forget about scaling or replicating your business from one state to another state. So what we did, we scaled our business from one district and to another district, and we just, maintain a gap of 2 or 3 districts in between. And we failed, and we learned lots of things that, no, I think it was too early to scale beyond a certain level where we were not ready in terms of how the replication will work. So what I am saying, like the product or the service, it will go through its cycle. And unless we learn the entire cycle, we learn all the pros and cons, we should actually delay to scale to that level. That is what my learning is, that we should be very careful or calculative and doing a lots of SWOT analysis before scaling or before replicating across the geography. But definitely as an entrepreneur, we love to scale faster, but जोश में होश नहीं गवाना है. That is what the things are. So hosh is very much necessary, but we have to be calculative because it's a cost, the time cost, money cost, right? That's how the things are.
Thank you so much, Kishore. Sujata, you can take the next question. How to deal with competition while scaling up?
Okay, I think it's not just for a social startup, but it's for everybody. I think competition is something that we all grapple with, and it's just something that it's literally where you collaborate with others and you grow, or you treat it as a competition where, am I audible? Sorry. Is my voice fine?
Now better. Okay. We missed the first part, so probably you can restart your sentence.
Okay, so I'm saying either you treat your competitors as your, it's a healthy environment where you all can collaborate together, and if you're fighting for the same cause, you go together. And a different way to look at it is that it's a place because you're offering something extra, or your value proposition is different. So so there are 2 ways to look at it. So I think the best way, because you are if you are a social setup, you are actually fighting for the same cause, so might as well work together. And that's a very important bit, which is called partnership, and together with your peers, growth is much easier. You can work on with government for different policies. You can work joint, come together. Competition is always good, especially in case of social startup.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Sujata. We missed out a lot of things, but probably we'll move on so that we don't break the rhythm. So Nidhi, you can take up this question. Sujit has asked, I have a strong desire to begin a startup in agriculture. So you are with Nidhi now, then Nidhi is able to create successful startups. But Nidhi, in your opinion, can you suggest how to get investor as a beginner? And what are your suggestions for the early stage agriculture entrepreneurs? Nidhi.
I would suggest that there are many incubator accelerators who are ready to work with you and co-create your solution and will make you investor ready. And they also initially give you some grants to start your business. So maybe it's good to tap into that. There are many agri focus, there's Will Grow, and they regularly have either their pitch day or have an opportunity for you to showcase and present your solution to wider investor network, so you can focus on that. Apart from that, there are many agri-tech focused investors who do small ticket size. I can connect with you offline and provide you the list if that's okay. But I think a good way to go for an early stages startup is to look at Upaya accelerators, ENAM, government. There are government institutes have come together to do that. AIC also, many other AICs have their own accelerators that will give you a lot more exposure to investors as well as give you some initial money to start with. But my suggestion is to go with grant funding, which is a bit more non-dilutive funding if you want to start initially at some small capital.
Yep, and this is where folks like AIC GUSEC comes into play. Be part of a lot of similar incubators and you'll discover a lot of good benefits. Ashok has asked a lot of good questions to Sujata, Uttam and Nidhi. I would request you to, if you can just read out the chat so you'll get more context, and then later on you can say yes, or we will explore. So it's 4:36. So one of the things we really want to do when we do these sessions is open up a certain 5-10 minute segment where we have successful founders ask questions to themselves. So we know that and what kind of questions that you may have for other ones. So Uttam, if you were to ask a question to any one of the panelists here, what would be your question? So you want to complete the cycle. So probably you choose one individual who can answer. Uttam.
So this is more like an open, not a question I would say, but just to understand the point of view the fellow entrepreneurs or fellow panelists are facing. Like, we all are in the same space more or less, whether it's agriculture or sanitation or education. When we I mean, this is also related to the question that has been put up by Sujit, what Nidhi just explained, that how you can get investor as a beginner, right? So Nidhi very well pointed out a couple of tips and tricks, whom to approach and how to approach. But most often, and some of these questions have already been answered by Kishore also, but most often we face a lot of difficulties being a social enterprise in getting investment during the scale-up process. Getting early investment is relatively easy, I would say, than when you are trying to scale up your venture, because of one of the primary reasons is investors don't have patience, and the kind of journey that we all social enterprise go with is slightly it's more like organic and slow growth, right? So how do you deal with that situation? Anybody can.
Yep. Yes, Kishore, you may want to pick this up.
Yeah, sure. So can you hear me?
Yeah,
Kishore. First of all, see, when we say investor don't have patience, that is one question, and second is that the social impact or these kind of institution or initiative may take more time to convince to convince investors to have faith in the entrepreneur to invest money. See, my learning is like that. We talk about ideas, we talk about all the innovations.
We lost your voice, Kishore.
Yes.
The point
Kishore,
comes for the maths. You can show me the numbers. And this can he?
Kishore, we missed a very important aspect when you mentioned the. Kishore, we missed the last line of.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Can you repeat that?
Can you?
Yes.
Yes. So what I'm saying, there are two things. One is that the sense of from where the money will come, revenue will come. If the entrepreneur has clarity, if we have good.
Okay, Kishore, we lost your voice again.
I have something to respond to, Uttam.
Yes, Nidhi, please.
No, first is that I'm not sure if all of us, I'm also struggling with that. I don't know if this is the right answer, but I've not looked at our business anytime as a social entrepreneurship or an entrepreneurship. I think fundamentals of the business, if are very strong, and there is some traction. I would definitely, we all empathize that initial funding is very difficult, but some after you build some traction, which I think there is a good proof of concept to then pursue it. And second is, I think, in my opinion, that every business is not fundable in terms of that hockey stick growth that other businesses are looking for. And there are so many other ways of getting funding. But I don't know why we are so obsessed with venture capitalists, just because the media is glamorizing it so much that these people raise this amounts of money and
all the valuation game.
All valuation, this and that. I think valuation is just to match what a founder wants to dilute and what an investor wants to put the money in, and they find a sweet spot to say that, okay, this is the valuation. I do think things are very different in US, in Western world, where the economy is also so different. In India, these things work very differently. There are definitely startups. Everyone aspires to be that large scale fundable startup. And if an entrepreneur wants to take that journey, I think it's great. Like, we have also taken that journey. It's like a treadmill. You need to keep going at it. But I think we should really not keep it as a standard rule. There are good profitable business who create more shareholders value than others funded startup, and have good profitability, don't have burn, are still have scale. You can look at Fab India. Will you call it as a social startup? They're going to do their IPO. They are having more revenue than any other thing. So at least my suggestion would be, in any case, the business fundamentals need to be very strong. If that is there are healthy margins, we will find an investor in some way or the other, not necessarily the vanilla investors that everyone wants.
Thank you so much, Nidhi. Sachin has asked, and probably Sujata, you can respond. Why startups need to struggle for funding? A little different view I would like to put for discussion. Can we look at revenue generating funding? So in a way, I believe Suta is a classic example. So what are your thoughts on that, Sujata?
So we've always wanted to stay a bootstrapped company. So I probably am not the right person to take this up. But I would tell you one thing is, we have been approached by the biggest of venture capital funds, and a lot of people who want to even have offered us to even buy the brand and grow the brand. So there are different, so that's what I think Nidhi said is right, that, depends on how you, what kind of investment you want in your businesses, whether you can take a bank loan or you can get a corporate support if it's a good cause, or like a venture capitalist coming to you. I think even I believe that it's not just about that, social entrepreneurship is different. It's exactly the same as a normal entrepreneur. When you have your numbers, which will, and somebody to believe, either they believe in your cause, that, this is the cause I believe in, and hence I'm investing money, or they actually look at the numbers and feel that, oh my God, no, these guys are here to stay, and the numbers are going to get either it's going to stay the same or it's going to grow in a certain trajectory, and then they would want to invest. For us, we have said no, because we want to stay bootstrapped till as long as possible.
And this is the ideal position could be. So just a couple of points. So idea is not to push everyone to go for investment. Idea is that people will build sustainable, bootstrap, successful businesses, but there are going to be certain set of businesses for whom probably venture capital could be a good opportunity. And if they learn certain tricks of the trade, they will do a better. So for those certain 10% of businesses where venture funding could be a good, useful or relevant, they still have to learn those things. So it's for 44. So friends, in case if you have any more questions, you can ask in the chat. We'll read it out. So another thing we want to do is, and idea is to want to do a rapid fire. So try to give 1 or 2 line answers to it, so that we can take more questions. So the one of the question is that now that you are experienced founders, so you would have done certain mistakes. So if you go back in your journey, which is that one thing you feel that you could have done little differently? Nidhi?
I would really focus on building better systems and processes from day one and not postpone it till it is really the need of absolute need of the hour, but do it from day zero.
Okay, awesome. So give 1 or 2 line answers because I want to cover 5 more questions. Sujata.
I would have hired the right people at the right time. I always procrastinate thinking I am the best. I'll do everything myself and not being able to let go. I think I would change that. If I go back, I would hire the right people at the right time.
Okay, Uttam.
For me, it's to avoid overthinking.
Have you succeeded in that?
I'm still trying. I'm still trying.
Awesome. Binayak?
So in my case, it would be like add on to what Uttam said, not to over strategize, and this is very useful when we want to start. So in my case, maybe if I look back, because right now the social impact sector, when you have lots of business modeling competitions, business plan competitions, wherein you sort of apply, you fill up applications and everything. I felt maybe during that time we could have just done with a pilot and not focus on so much on financing, Excel sheets, etc. So maybe yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Binayak. Kishore, which is that one thing you feel you could have done little differently?
Yeah, so I think, so many things I could have done much better way, but yes, especially, that hiring and talent acquisition, especially when you are working at farm gate level, you always struggle to get a good quality people. So maybe initially we, experimented lots of things, but finally something worked. So I think, the talent acquisition strategy could have been better to scale faster, I believe.
Awesome. And one thing, of course, you don't go yourself brand as a social entrepreneur, but there is a business, there is a sense of purpose that you would want to impact, have an impact. So when you build these businesses, have you faced a dilemma that there are certain decisions that you take that is good for business but less impact, or have you faced that dilemma? And if you face, then what was that? Just give that answer, then we'll move on to the next question. Sujata.
No, I was thinking about exactly what to say and you asked me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I'll answer it. I'll answer. I think we face the dilemma in a lot of places. For example, when I wanted to replicate my model quickly in a different village, so we started with West Bengal, 2 villages in West Bengal. We wanted to quickly do it in Odisha. Just didn't work, So I think I think sometimes we just rush in things so that we feel that scaling is easy and not think about how it's going to affect. And actually it spoiled our supply chain route. So I think sometimes we just, rather than thinking about the impact, why we started it and why we did it, I think rushing into things just to think about scaling is a big mistake, and taking it slow is a very critical thing, especially in social startup. You have to remember what you started it for.
Awesome. Nidhi, the name of your organization is Science for Society, so you cannot dilute from that. But have you faced a dilemma?
Absolutely. Yes, we choose to work with 100% women in our supply chain, and a lot of time, even the procurement executives are all women-led in villages. And people said that, okay, how are other farmers actually going to sell to a woman? And we decided that that's something that we want to do consciously, and went ahead with it. So yeah, a lot of times those doubts come in when everyone who's expert in that area or have a lot of experience tell you, so you're self-doubting all the time, but have praised this many times.
Awesome. Uttam, one line answer.
So the biggest dilemma we had right in the beginning itself, whether to form a not-for-profit or a for-profit entity. And we chose to remain in the for-profit zone because we thought that, if it has to be sustainable, it has to be profitable, otherwise we can't sustain. So the value that you're offering, people need to, pay for it.
Yep. Kishore?
Yeah, so I think the dilemma can be overruled with the larger impact creation, which if the impact is visible, you can build your strong business model and you get rid of any point of time, into a dilemma or kind of thing. So the value creation need to be larger enough to overcome everything. That much. It should not be a minuscule or something. Otherwise, lots of invisible force will, devastate everything. So the value should be large. Dilemma will not exist.
Awesome. Binayak?
For me and at ThinkZone, the biggest dilemma was to completely pivot our model when we had raised institutional funding. So we had when we raised money, it was for like a business to consumer, like you charge end users, and that was the biggest dilemma when we are growing and we realized that hey, this won't work. But that is where we had the dilemma of whether we should be continuing or moving to new geographies where we can charge our end users, or the thing for which we started out and remain in the geography where we are work on our mission, but try to sort of find ways in which we can become sustainable. So I guess that was the biggest dilemma that we had, and we as a team decided to stick to our mission and find out other revenue statements instead of moving to a new geography.
Awesome. And everyone, Harsiddhi has shared the feedback form in the chat. You can fill that up, and so that will help us get better. So the next question is about support system. That as a social enterprise, you want to support everyone. Who is supporting you? So in your life, who is your support system? Sujata.
For me, my family definitely. I think a lot of answers will be similar, but I think as a mother of a child, for me, if my family wouldn't have taken care of the house, I wouldn't have been able to give time to office. I think family is something which is super important. Letting me just not come back home some days and just work. For sure, family. Yeah.
Okay, I believe everybody will have a similar answer, so I'll change the question. So entrepreneurship is a very roller coaster ride. There are highs are high, lows are low, but sometimes you have to take favors from people. So in your entrepreneurial journey, which is the most recent favor you had to ask from someone apart from your team members? Nidhi.
I'm still thinking, so you have to give me a second to respond on.
Okay.
Yes, I think this is.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Majorly people who you want your talent acquisition, when you want people to hire and come to your course. It's not a favor, but you want your network to recommend the right sort of people. So we are hiring for multiple roles, and I'm always asking my friends and family to provide me good recommendations.
Awesome. One of the most recent one is to request all of you to be on this panel so we can have a great discussion. And thank you so much for accepting the invite. Uttam, which is the most recent favor you had to ask from someone apart from your team?
No, I mean, I keep asking favor to all my friends and family members to spread the word about our products and solutions so that people get to know about it and buy.
Yes, that is something which is needed. People appreciate products, but they don't necessarily buy. Correct. Kishore?
Yeah, so I think the favor is very, negative word, because we believe in competency and capability. But still, if you ask me, we are trying to disrupt the market and create a new ecosystem at agri-tech space. So we are always trying to convince regulator to change your, the way you are operating. You please come to FarmGate and understand that how the ecosystem works, and please rework on your that regulatory framework, especially with the WDRA, Warehouse Development Regulatory Authority. So we ask them the lots of favor, you please change and consider micro warehouse concept so that it can be functional at ground zero.
Awesome. That is called public policy now. Binayak.
Like the funny thing is that I today asked for 2 favors over email and over phone. Once to a corporate to start the pilot program quickly, and the second one, just I wrote an email to one of our funders to connect me to another funder. So yeah, those are the favors, and like we shamelessly asked for the same.
Sujata, your answer to this.
So that's a very silly favor, but then I have been asking my team member to be present in a new office. I am unable to travel to I have 2 offices now. There's a new office where the guards don't even know who the owner is. So there's a lot of checking that happens. So I've just asked somebody to replace me saying I'm Sujata. So there's a person who is in the office now saying I'm Sujata Biswas and signs whatever documentation has to be done, and so that the work becomes faster. So all these, yeah, that's what I asked at least recently.
Awesome. So it's 4:55. We'll finish at 5. So this next question probably deserves a separate session on itself, and someday we will do that also. So as a founder of the enterprise which has an impact, you have that empathy to create an impact. So do you expect exactly the same level of empathy from your team members, or if they can do their job well, that is also good enough? So what are your thoughts on that? But in one line. This time we start with Binayak.
Yes, so that's, I think, a classic case where we have this expectation that we are all aligned to the same, mission and vision that we have as an organization. Yes, like it's a general expectation, but then I have realized this is that if it is not the case, or even if it's like 50% or 60%, we still think, I still think as a founder we have done our work. So it would be, not
awesome.
thinking like
Binayak,
yeah, sure.
One line answer. These are the slog overs. We have to. Yes, Kishore, your one line answer to this.
Yes, it's called that Dil Mange More. So I want each one should be, with the same feeling and passion. Then only they will be feeling associated with the cause, right? And they should exist for the cause. So I expect from everyone that they should create impact and enjoy that impact.
Awesome. And there is no right and wrong. So idea is to know what is happening at your side. Uttam.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that is one of the major expectations whenever we go for any hiring or selecting a team member, that the same kind of empathy or same kind of feeling should be there. So yeah.
Nidhi?
In some roles, I prioritize competence more over empathy, and in which is finance, and but in others, sometimes even your enthusiasm is good enough to join the team. So empathy is yes, but empathy, enthusiasm, and competence.
Okay, awesome. Sujata?
Yeah, I think it's Nidhi's answer is very good, which I also choose competence and empathy. I value it. But to be honest, it's like brainwashing, where you actually constantly have to tell your story and repeatedly do so. And, if that process is followed, then I think the empathy slowly starts building, and it's like a culture slowly that, seeps into everybody's life. So I think that's what you can do.
Awesome. So it's 457. So you have to give a 1 or 2 word answer. So I wanted to ask 2 questions. If everything happens the way you imagine it would be, in that case, what would your company be doing? Just give a 1-line answer, because I want to ask another question. Sujata?
Photo shoots.
Okay. Nidhi?
Solving challenging problems with innovation.
Okay. Uttam?
IPO probably.
Wow. Kishore?
Yeah, digitizing, that agri-tech space, the farmers. Yeah.
Awesome. Binayak?
Children going to schools and actually learning. That is what I feel.
Okay, awesome. Now the last question, then we have Harsiddhi to do the closing remarks. This is the question that I ask everybody. If you were to describe your entrepreneurial journey in 1 or 2 words, what would that be? Binayak?
You have used the word roller coaster. So.
Oh, yep, roller coaster. So roller coaster word is taken. Other people cannot take the roller coaster word. Kishore?
How's the Joes? Hi, sir.
Awesome. Uttam?
Very enriching. Very enriching.
Nidhi?
Self-discovery.
Awesome. Sujata?
Surprise.
Wow. Thank you so much, everyone. It's 4:59, and last minute, Harsiddhi I tip in. Typically, we say stage is yours, but Harsiddhi, the screen is yours now. Yes, Harsiddhi.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jatin. I really, on behalf of ECHI and AICGUSEC and UNICEF, I would like to thank all of you for taking time out and sharing your entrepreneurial journey with us and enlightening us. We hope to keep this ecosystem going further and hope to connect with you in future webinars. Thank you so much, everyone.
And Harshiti, just a sec.
Yeah.
I forgot about the ice cream part. Amol
Oh,
has
yeah.
asked good question. So Amol, you win the ice cream. Just probably if you can reach out to me on any of the social media, or Harshiti will have my contact information,
Sure.
and I'll do the needful. Yes.
Sure.
Yes, Harshiti.
And yeah, I am putting the feedback form in the chat box. Please, those who have not yet completed it, please complete and submit. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again. Thank you all the time.
Thank you so much,
Thanks.
everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you
Bye.
so much.
Bye.
Thank you, Kishore.